As host would be too much of a distraction for our fans and not the right move for the show. I will be stepping down as host effective immediately.
An incredibly important American institution. It's about making people that are smart the most important people in the room. And I just think it's so important to keep that going.
Hello everyone, welcome to this special edition of Bowers. We talk about new Jeopardy host Mike Richards steps down after a controversy of making rude comments. But first thing first, join in the conversation using the hashtag Bowers here on Connect. And don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe is caring. Tell a friend, call a friend, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss a thing. Let's talk about new Jeopardy host Mike Richards steps down as the new host of the show, which that's odd, but it happens. Like I said, Mike Richards, who was the executive producer and was going to be slated to be the new host, now steps down after former host and longtime host Alex Trebek recently passed away. Mike Richards and various other co-guest hosts were vying for the job, and Mike Richards vied for the job by hiring himself and firing himself. Let's get to the latest on how all this Jeopardy debacle and Mike Richards put himself in real jeopardy with this. Mike Richards put himself in a lot of jeopardy, making comments that many people didn't think that was inappropriate. And Mike Richards apologized, but he decided that he wanted to just bow out real quickly. And now there have been reports that a lot of people wanted actor, Reading Rainbow host levarburton to fill in that role, voicing their concern. And could this be the possibility of levarburton gets his opportunity coming in as Jeopardy's host? We'll have to wait and see on that. Well, let's hear comments about what Mike Richards had said prior before he had got rude comments and decided to hire and fire himself with this.
Different categories. Let me check the rules on that. No, we can't do that.
Reviews are in on Jeopardy's guest host, Mike Richards. I love Mike Richards, handsome and a great voice. Be still, my heart. He is perfect for the job. But who is Mike Richards?
Welcome to Jeopardy, everyone.
The 45-year-old is the executive producer of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, stepping into host following Ken Jennings' 6-week run behind the lectern.
We had great contestants lined up. The staff and crew were teed up. We've all had our COVID tests. We're all here. It was very literally at the last minute the decision was made for me to step in and just keep the show going.
In fact, Mike says he only owned one suit when he found out he got the gig. A dream come true nonetheless. Mike has been a fan of the show since he was 10.
We had the Encyclopedia Britannica, and I started to read them from A and see, that was the quickest way to get smart would be just if you knew everything in there, could you then be on Jeopardy? And the answer is probably yes.
At least for Mike it is. In the decade before he joined Jeopardy, he produced The Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal, and the latest Who Wants to Be a Millionaire series. And if he looks familiar, he has appeared in front of the camera before.
Welcome to Beauty and the Geek, you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
As the host of a very different type of show.
Alex always said that the contestants are the stars of Jeopardy. So that was in my head, and he said it to me, he said it a lot, but that was a big focus.
And fans appreciate that. No one will replace Alex, but Mike is the next best thing.
He was an idol of mine, and I will work every day to try to live up to the example he set.
Well, Mike Richards now put himself in a pickle indeed. So Mike Richards now deciding to leave Jeopardy, but he's going to still serve as executive producer. But we just have to wait and see what Mike Richards is going to do going forward. Will there be a petition to get him off as executive producer? And Mike Richards was a former game show host way back when, but that don't matter no more. So there that go. All right, let's do our segment where we do what the people say. What the people say is you voice your opinion, voice your concern on what you think about this situation. Mike Richards stepping down as the new host of Jeopardy. And should levarburton be the new host of Jeopardy? A lot of people been petitioning as of late. Let's get to the latest with what the people say with this.
Jeopardy's hosting decision. Mike Richards, who is also the show's executive producer, saying he's stepping down from the hosting job after coming under fire for past offensive comments, which he apologized for, and amid a lot of questions about the process that wound up choosing him. Joining me now is NBC's Joe Fryer. He's on the phone along with Jen Chaney, a TV critic for Vulture. So, Joe, I want to read you some of the statement from Richards, who says, quote, "I want to apologize to each of you for the unwanted negative attention that has come to Jeopardy over the last few weeks, and for the confusion and delays this is now causing. I know I've got a lot of work to do to regain your trust and confidence."
Richards and
as host would be too much of a distraction for our fans and not the right move for the show. I will be stepping down as host effective immediately.
An incredibly important American institution. It's about making people that are smart the most important people in the room, and I just think it's so important to keep that going.
Production has come to a halt right now while the long-running game show searches for a new permanent host.
Right away, you knew he was a genius. That is a great story.
Today's news doesn't come as a surprise to Jeopardy fans. The moment Richards was named as Alex Trebek's successor, he's been clouded in controversy, specifically for offensive and degrading comments he made on a podcast he co-hosted 8 years ago.
You have a big personality.
Thank you.
No, good.
That's when you describe someone like that when you're dating them, that's not a compliment. She has a big personality.
Tonight, Sony Pictures TV, the production company behind Jeopardy, supports Richards' decision to step down, saying, "We were surprised this week to learn of Mike's 2013-2014 podcast and the offensive language he used in the past. We have spoken with him about our concerns and our expectations moving forward." But while Richards might be out as host, he will continue to serve as Jeopardy's executive producer behind the scenes. In the meantime, looks like Dictionary.com is taking a few shots of their own, tweeting this out just hours after today's news. Jeopardy is a noun meaning peril or danger. Here it is in a sentence. My job is in jeopardy because of my past comments. In other TV news, it's two worlds colliding.
New host of Jeopardy, Mike released a statement today saying some of his past incidents that have come to light have cast a shadow on the show. He went on to say, quote, "Over the last several days, it has become clear that moving forward as host would be too much of a distraction for our fans and not the right move for the show." Now, as we mentioned, Mike faced criticism over his past involvement in 2 discrimination lawsuits. And most recently, he was accused of degrading women and stereotyping Jewish people on his former podcast. Is this the right move, Tori?
Yeah, and I know Mike Richards, and I actually really like Mike Richards. He was a buddy of mine. I hosted with him at Reel's channel. But you've got to understand the context of Jeopardy. It is a very formal show. The people watching it want that reputation that is stellar. The legacy has to be really up there. It's just an erudite show. So all of this, the story has become bigger than Jeopardy. And Jeopardy people who are watching at home just want to watch Jeopardy. So once this story got overtaken, he's still the executive producer. He'll be fine. He should not be host of the show that really has a long-standing legacy of just knowing trivia and sort of letting the host disappear. That's what Alex Trebek did best. He disappeared, really.
But now what are you going to do? You're going to go get a celebrity, right? A named person. He was a no-name person, and it was best for the show. I don't like that social media has now become executive producers of television shows and think they know what's best. Sony knows what's best. Jeopardy knows what's best, but they're forced to let people go because of the mob mentality.
You know,
Sony
didn't know about this podcast, and as soon as they did, which they should have vetted because it's in 2014, they took it down immediately. Sony should have done a better job, is what I'm saying, and rounding out a vetting process so they don't go through this every time.
But what he didn't say anything. Listen, what he said,
I agree.
I have to watch what I say here. But what we were just talking about before the break, we could get in trouble for.
Yep.
Not because it was discriminatory, because some people would blow the whistle just because they have nothing to do all day and they want to blow the whistle. Where do we draw the line on this cancel culture?
Because you're not going out to be the host of Jeopardy. I'm saying,
but I'm a television host.
I understand
and this
that.
is my career.
And there's more flavor to that. I'm just saying specifically Jeopardy is such a classic game show. This took the story over, and
but he was nobody, and you're never going to find somebody without a past. It's impossible. It's impossible.
That's the point, Jeff. And the thing is, and obviously I love Alex Trebek just like everybody else, Sammy, but look, he was lucky enough, just like our parents were lucky enough to be able to make mistakes, be able to say things that were untoward, and not have every single thing recorded. From now on, because the next host of Jeopardy is probably 14 right now. When they're ready, we are now asking this person to almost be presidential in that they can have no embarrassing things ever recorded, even though they'll record everything. Everything will be recorded for them drunk at a party at 21, them saying something silly or smoking pot at 23, whatever people do in college, that will now come out. So I'm just wondering, where do we go from here? If we need everybody to be absolutely perfect and do not said anything ever on their podcast.
I don't think they're asking for anyone to be perfect. They just want a show that's really clean and classic to be clean and classic.
It was the guy that they wanted. Everyone wanted that LeVar Burton guy.
Yes.
So the mob came for this guy and dug into his past. And they got him on some technicality stuff that, again, was awful, but it wasn't job worthy, I don't think.
Right.
They wanted LeVar Burton. Now, if LeVar Burton doesn't get that job, whoever's next is going to get the same scrutiny. That's just how it's going to go, and I'm tired of it.
I just get concerned with people not having, and I say this all the time on the show, discernment with each individual case. Nobody really digs in and listens to the whole podcast. They just hear that one sentence, and then they extrapolate it, and then they form an opinion. If us four had a podcast,
you're right.
Unfiltered, we are buddies, we joke around. I can't imagine how one sentence could be pulled out, printed in black and white, and be misinterpreted.
But again, and I say the context here is none of us are going out for a show that needs a spotless reputation. Alex Trebek was just so dignified that there's a different context here because it's Jeopardy.
All right, that's a good point. No, all right.
Lovely definition of the word jeopardy, saying, my job is in jeopardy because of my past comments. But in came LeVar Burton. He's a fan favorite. He was guest host for 1 week, and his tweet said, Happy Friday, y'all. But it gets better, folks. There is one person that Richards felt most threatened by. And it's not LeVar Burton. It's actually the person Alex Trebek pointed to as his successor, calling her very bright and very personable. Indeed, folks, Alex Trebek himself named Laura Coates, the woman you see right here, a black woman, to be the new host of Jeopardy. We now know that Richards, the executive producer of the show, ran the tryout process for the new host selection while also keeping himself in the mix. He also made a series of racist and sexist comments on a podcast, something you or I could never do, and still get considered for any gig, let alone for hosting America's favorite trivia show. You've seen Laura on CNN being smart. You've heard her on SiriusXM being funny. But we did not see her on Jeopardy because a white man was probably threatened by her talent. So you may think this moment is about a black man getting a second chance about a dream gig, but it's really about the internet doing its thing to make sure a mediocre white man did not get ahead by stepping on a black woman. Internet, go get her audition.
And he is now stepping down as the host of Jeopardy. Obviously, Alex Trebek passed away. They went through this long process to try to figure out who's going to host next. Mike Richards was the executive producer of the show, and that rubs some people the wrong way. They wait a minute, you're the executive producer of the show, you're just going to step into the hosting role? First of all, as an executive producer of the third most listened to radio program in the country, I think that's a totally appropriate scenario. I don't know why that seems weird to anybody. But, look, when you're an EP, sometimes you rub people the wrong way. You usually make some enemies along the way. That didn't happen to me, obviously, because, I'm just super nice. But apparently he wasn't all the time. He did do a podcast, which is really the source of his trouble. And it's another one of these cancel culture things. They went back. The Ringer, for some reason, did this. I don't know. I think The Ringer is a sports site. At least that was my understanding of it. But they went back to try to out a Jeopardy host for his old podcasts. And they dug through all of his podcasts and listed all the bad things he apparently said in them. Most of them were completely innocuous. It's supposed to be a funny podcast. A couple times he joked with his female co-host about maybe her appearance. Apparently said that some women who are in one-piece bathing suits look frumpy. I mean, like, legitimately, this is the stuff. He at one point used a word, and they described it in the article as a slur, and they wouldn't even write the word in the article, so I had no idea what it was. I had to click around the internet a few times to try to figure out what it was, and it was the word for little people, which is, to me, much more offensive than midget. Now, midget is apparently not the right thing to say anymore. Okay, whatever. You want to keep changing these words every 10 seconds. But it was, I think, much more acceptable, at least in 2013, when it was said, which is a big issue. Also, little people is so demeaning. It's so much worse than anything else you can call someone who is a little person. Little people? It's such a strange... I've never understood that one. Anyway, bottom line is, this was so offensive that he's now had to step down. They are saying he's going to remain on as executive producer, but come on. These scams come like this. How many times have we seen this? You don't get the backup job. Once you give up the main job, they don't keep you in the backup job. They throw you there for a couple weeks until they get too much heat for that, and then they're going to throw him out. If this thing lasts a week with him as the executive producer, I'll be surprised. Back in a second.
Of all our great segments, but okay, you know what? Forget about the show because I got some breaking news during the show. I had no idea. Look who dropped out. I know you guys are very invested in your Jeopardy. Mike Richards, who was the EP on the show, he was chosen to replace the one and only Alex Trebek. Well, now he has stepped down. Apparently, there was some controversial statements, things that have come up that he might have said in the past. And so he stepped down, I should say. So who do you want to be the host? Do you want, this is levarburton, I love LeVar. And he simply said, Happy Friday, y'all. He's great. Now, I always forget how to say her name. Maya Bialik?
Perfect.
Yeah, Maya Bialik. I'm also a fan of hers, but I don't know. She was tapped to kind of host some of these specials for Jeopardy, but anyway, I know you guys have your strong opinions. We want to hear about them. Okay, next up, somebody saying hi, Trent?
No, just the word that was beautiful. And join us on Instagram at ATL and Co, where Christine's going to do a little spin on that. But people are watching. Vanna and Amy, we love you. And Christine.
Okay.
Of you making your voice heard, saying that, hey, levarburton should be the host of Jeopardy, no matter what. So it's just out there. We just have to wait and see. Does levarburton take steps into the legendary footsteps of Alex Trebek? Only time will tell, and we just have to wait and see on that. But, hey, only time will tell. But thank you all for watching this edition of Vibe. Talk about Mike Richards. Was the new host of Jeopardy. Now he's no longer a new host, but he still keeps his executive producer position. Would that be going ahead? Just wait and see. And could levarburton be the new face of Jeopardy going forward? Thank you all for watching this edition of Viral. Be your host, Kendra Diggs, saying so long. See you next time for another edition of Viral.